Good morning and welcome back to the Livingston Parish News Morning Show. My name is McHugh David, publisher and editor of the news. Appreciate you guys joining us this morning. If you're watching this live, thanks for that. If you are watching this later or listening to this later, we appreciate that as well. Thanks again. It's another coronavirus show here. Please remember, we do have a full list. It's all free on our website, www.livingstonparishnews.com/coronavirus. We are keeping on top of everything that we can as we move through these troubling and trying times, but we are all in this together. Please remember what Coach Ed Ogeron said, stick to the game plan. So with that being said, we're going to jump into our traffic and weather real quick, and then we're going to jump, of course, into the coronavirus. It's currently clear. Not a whole lot of traffic today, of course, with no school. A lot of folks working from home. You're not even looking at any kind of minor delays at the moment. Current temperature is 71 degrees, 83 degrees is your high, 64 degrees your overnight low. You're also looking in some afternoon and into the evening thunderstorms. So be prepared for that as we roll into what looks like a wet spring season. The coronavirus, of course, continues to spread. We're currently looking at 392 cases at 392 cases, 26 out of 64 parishes, including Livingston Parish. We have our first confirmed case of a Livingston Parish resident. Doesn't necessarily mean that they are here. We'll talk about that in a second, with 10 total deaths. Now, what we meant by that was that it was confirmed by Parish President Leighton Ricks yesterday that the person being tested did identify, i.e. their ID said that they had a Livingston Parish address, but they were tested at a hospital in New Orleans. So we don't know if they're here, they're there. One thing that the Department of Health officials is going to be looking back at is where they've been over the past few weeks, who they've been near, that sort of thing. So it'll be interesting to see how these backtracks work through the Department of Health as they discover new cases of the coronavirus. Yesterday, the governor held a press conference before the 5:30 numbers came out for the number of sick and infected here in Louisiana that comes through the Department of Health. In that press conference, the governor said that right now Louisiana's trajectory is looking like Italy. A lot of people were like, well, that doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but a lot of it has to do with per capita, not necessarily raw cases. Now, Orleans Parish, as of yesterday, was number 7 nationwide in terms of raw instances of coronavirus. When you're talking about per capita numbers, Louisiana is almost at the top of America. So we have more people turning up in positive for the coronavirus than we do than most other states do in sort of a per capita or per population basis. So we're kind of leading the way on that one. With that being said, the governor did say he dispelled a couple of rumors. The National Guard is for security surrounding the coronavirus kits only. That's at mobile testing sites, at the warehouse where they're kept. That sort of thing to keep police in place. A lot of people had said, well, he had asked the president for a little bit of flexibility regarding the National Guard. That flexibility is in the way that they are funded. He being Governor John Bel Edwards, thinks that they will need more National Guardsmen throughout the state to do what they're doing in Orleans Parish right now, which is security detail, basically. So that's what he was asking for with regard to flexibility. He is not imposing or invoking martial law. There also is no shelter-at-home proclamation at this time. So there's also a difference between a quarantine lockdown and a stay-at-home proclamation. The difference being, if he were to tell you that he has a stay-at-home proclamation, much like Los Angeles or California has at the moment, what he's actually saying is, okay, you can still go to the pharmacy. Of course, if you need to go see the doctor, that's fine. And if you got to go to the grocery store, that's fine. Otherwise, stay at home. One of the things that they can institute is that if you're leaving, you're going to have to, have some sort of, you might be escorted. So if you have to go to the grocery store, but that we as a society aren't necessarily equipped for a quarantine lockdown at this moment. If you're looking for what a quarantine lockdown looks like, simply Google Wuhan, China. They were doing some things over there to keep people in their homes, including welding some doors shut. So they took some pretty serious measures. So haven't gotten quite that far yet. A lot of people were, especially on his live feed yesterday, asking for a shelter at home for 14 days. He has not made that proclamation yet. Now, during that press conference, he was visibly a little frustrated. That'd be the governor, asking Louisiana residents to take this seriously. We do not want to end up like Italy. So take those mitigation efforts seriously. That's washing your hands for at least 20 seconds, disinfecting common surfaces, keeping public gatherings to 50 people or less, and exercising social distancing at least 6 feet. 10 people or less in private gatherings. So please, coughing and sneezing either into your elbow or a tissue. Try not to spray the particulate into the air. Those are things that you can do to try to mitigate the spread of this disease, the COVID-19, which is a result of getting the coronavirus. So please, try to practice these mitigation efforts so we do not have to get a shelter-in-place mandate. As of right now, the governor does not want to do that. Of course, Attorney General Jeff Landry said at his conference, that would be the governor's press conference 2 days ago, that right now everything that the governor's done is well within his constitutional right, per his expanded powers because of the Department of Health. Declaring an emergency. So as of right now, according to Attorney General Jeff Landry, and as we all know, Attorney General Jeff Landry and Governor John Bel Edwards do not get along, but he said, in this instance, this is to curb the spread of coronavirus and to stop people from getting sick. So the governor is well within his right. He also made, that would be the governor, but as of right now, no shelter at home. The governor also made a proclamation that he will be waiving all required education benchmarks and responsibilities. That includes the number of minutes which are required for school in any given year. That also includes individual testing, LEAP testing, EOCs, that sort of thing, which would also suspend school grades as well as teacher grades and principal grades. That has to be ratified and accepted by the Department of Education in D.C. The governor said he's pretty sure they would, but he was not 100% on that. But he wanted to go ahead and make that move. How that will affect school, as it was announced yesterday, school would not return until April 20th because they would still recognize spring break. We are not sure. The news is still waiting to hear back from Superintendent Joe Murphy regarding those things. But he did issue that proclamation yesterday, so there will be no end-of-year testing this year if the federal government accepts that proclamation. Still waiting on that. Want to remind folks that you should call your schools if you have a school-age child. Trying to get in touch with your school is a big deal. Get in touch with those teachers. Figure out a personal education plan for your kids while they're at home. Working through that just as best as you can. So please remember, excuse me, that you need to check that out. You can Google your school, or there's a full directory school list on the parish's school board website. There it is, lpsb.org. Also, there were 14,000 meals handed out Wednesday through the food department and nutrition department at the school board. Over 300 folks were mobilized across 14 meal sites, passing those out. We're surprised. The officials were surprised at the turnout. They will be doing that again next week, Monday and Wednesday, at those 14 school sites. Of course, you can check those out, www.livingstonparishnews.com/coronavirus. Yesterday, Walker High hosted a TV show where they talked to individual principals within the Walker system, as well as the superintendent, the director of nutrition, as well as the director of nursing. The director of nursing said that hand washing and disinfecting common places is one of the best ways to keep this virus from spreading. So keeping your house clean, keeping your hands washed, 20-second soap and water is a big deal. We already discussed spring break, of course. That's going to push school back to April 20th. Discuss the governor's proclamation, so please keep that in mind. SBA loans were confirmed yesterday, so they will be available up to $2 million for individual businesses at a 3.75% interest rate. Of course, Congressman Garrett Graves is working to make sure that any legislation they pass for each individual loan is that it will not count as a duplication of benefit. They expect grant money, but it may not, but they do expect disaster relief grant money to come down eventually, especially considering the checks that the president is trying to send out, possibly $1,200 per person. But trying to make sure, as we all know, going through the flood, that SBA loans really gummed up the works. Trying to make sure that that does not count as a duplication of benefit, of course, because that is a loan. You pay it back with interest. So the government technically makes money on you. But for a lot of businesses, that may be the only way they can keep things going. Again, you can check that out, SBA.gov. That's Small Business Administration, SBA.gov, to sign up for a loan. Of course, the entire state is eligible for those loans. The Louisiana, Mr. Jim Donnellan, the Commissioner of Insurance, has banned cost sharing on corona testing kits through insurance. So if you're paying for a corona test through your insurance, there will be no cost sharing mandate there. You'll pay your copay and that's it. That was announced yesterday. So last but certainly not least, as we've been kind of trying to shovel this information out just as quickly as we could, as responsibly as we could, one of the things that we will be rolling out today and discussing, and one of the sports stories already came out yesterday, so the cat's kind of out of the bag. But one thing that people need to know is that these seniors in Livingston Parish schools went through the flood as freshmen. So let that sink in for a minute. Not only, there's sort of a 32,000 feet deal there that, we've not only had two major disasters in less than 4 years, but you've had a huge group of kids that went through one of the worst disasters the parish has ever seen in 2016. And then now again, that was to open their high school career. And now again, to close it, you're looking at just a disease on a level that we haven't even really begun to comprehend yet, because the testing just isn't there. So it's a pretty amazing deal what these kids are going through. So if you know a senior, you see a senior, don't shake their hand, don't hug them, because, unless you're their parent, but try to practice the social distancing, but tell them, you're going to do great. One of the things I interviewed former principal Kelly Jones, now director of high school curriculum, and Denham Springs High School principal Wes Howard yesterday. And, the whole deal was, how are you going to treat, how are you going to respond to these things? That's what's going to make you into who you are. So please remember that those kids have gone through quite a lot. All of our students have, and all of our residents in Livingston Parish. We're all in it together. I like to keep saying it because people are saying that Coach Ed Ogeron should be the national spokesperson. But please remember, we are Louisianians. We are resilient. You got to stick with the game plan because it's going to work, but you got to stick with it. I want to remind folks, we're looking at 392 cases of coronavirus as of the second afternoon update yesterday. 26 of 64 parishes, including our first case in Livingston Parish. Although we do not know if that person is in Livingston Parish. They were tested in New Orleans. We have 10 total deaths yesterday. The governor talked about, we could look like Italy, according to some of the worst case scenario models that have come out so far. Please also remember that the 392 cases statewide is a little misleading. Want to discuss that real quick. That is just that's all based on number of tests. So the number of as the tests come out, more and more people could show positive. That is one of the problems with this thing, is that I'm not a health official, but state officials are starting to believe that this has been around for a lot longer than people know, and that it could get worse, or it will get worse, according to some, before it gets better. So please remember, we are releasing statistics as we get them through the Department of Health. And they release those twice, 9:30 and 5 p.m. I said 5:30 p.m. I apologize. It's 9:30 a.m. and 5 p.m. every day. You get a new set of numbers as these tests come through and are confirmed positive or negative. Right now, you're looking at almost a 40% positive rate based on the tests that have been performed so far. Of course, there's an interesting list of folks that have gotten it, including Saints head coach Sean Payton. So again, this is one of those things the governor said, I think 2 or 3 days ago at a press conference. This does not know economic value. This does not know income. It is like the flood. It is a virus, and anybody can get it. One last time with your traffic, it is clear as of right now. Of course, a lot of people working from home, no kids in school, so things are a little slow at the moment for a lot of people, not for us. 71 degrees is your current temperature, 83 degrees your high, 64 degrees your overnight low. You're looking at afternoon and evening thunderstorms today, starting to get wet and rainy, kind of spring type weather as we move towards the end of March. One last time, my name is McHugh David, publisher and editor of the news. Appreciate you joining us this morning for the Livingston Parish News Morning Show. Of course, barring any kind of crazy announcement coming over the next couple of days, this will be our last show for this week. We will be back in the booth Monday. Please remember, we are on Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram, and YouTube. We are once a week in print on Thursdays. We are also online, as mentioned, www.livingstonparishnews.com/coronavirus. All those stories are free. We're keeping them free for the public. Of course, it's just a huge index of everything that we've published so far. We're also putting that stuff out on social media just as soon as we can get it. Please also remember, we upload these shows to www.livingstonparishnews.com/podcast, so we hope you check them out there. Please be safe. Please practice social distancing. Please stick to the game plan. Please have a great weekend. Please just try to remember that we are all in this together. It is a tough time for all of us. We are going to be moving as a state, as a country, as a planet through something like this just as easy and as difficult as we can possibly do it. So once again, appreciate you joining us this morning. Hope you have a great weekend, and we'll be back at you Monday.